8. Charlotte. The internet went into a frenzy in late 2016 when photos of a massive spider appeared on the Facebook page of an Australian animal sanctuary called Barnyard Betty's Rescue. Appropriately named Charlotte, the female arachnid appeared to be a huntsman spider. Charlotte stood out as possibly one of the biggest huntsman spiders ever seen, although it's impossible to know for sure because she was never measured and her species was never confirmed. There are thousands of subspecies of huntsman spiders, and they're found all over the world. They vary greatly in size, with the smallest among them having a body length of an inch, 2.5 centimeters or less, while the bodies of the larger specimens measure as much as 5 inches, 13 centimeters long. In Australia, it's rare to see a massive huntsman spider, which made Charlotte unique among most others. As terrifying as she looked, staff at Barnyard Betty's Rescue described her as a non-aggressive creature who, like most spiders, just wanted to go about her business eating bugs and living in peace. In a Facebook post, the refuge said that it rescued Charlotte from a neighbor's home. Instead of keeping her in captivity, the farmer set her free to live on the property at a location of her choosing. 7. Giant huntsman spider. Found in warm climates throughout the world, huntsman spiders got their name from their unusual practice of hunting down their prey rather than catching them in webs. While they vary in size, they're generally known for being large and fast. Some can move as fast as 3 feet, 1 meter per second, according to entomologist Christy Bills, who told Live Science that huntsman spiders are social creatures who are often seen hanging out in groups on tree stumps and elsewhere throughout their habitat. The largest among them, the giant huntsman spider, was discovered in 2001 by a team of German researchers. With a leg span of up to 12 inches, 30.5 centimeters, roughly the size of an American dinner plate, it's the world's largest spider on record by leg span. However, any arachnophobes who are watching this video can rest easy, because the giant huntsman is an elusive cave-dwelling species only found in a small area of Laos. Most people never encounter one. In fact, scientists believe that only a handful of people have ever come face to face with a giant huntsman spider. On the off chance that it does happen, the species isn't much of a threat to humans. It may look terrifying, its bite is known to hurt, and the mere sight of it may cause nightmares. But a giant huntsman's venom isn't deadly to humans, and typically doesn't cause symptoms beyond mild nausea and headaches. 6. Brazilian wandering spider. In 2015, a young British mother of 2 named Michaela Egan noticed a spider cocoon on a bunch of bananas she'd bought days earlier at a Tesco supermarket in Rainham, Essex. She took a photo of the cocoon and shared it on social media in hopes that someone could help her identify what species it might belong to. Michaela's friends warned her that the cocoon might have been created by a highly venomous Brazilian wandering spider, which is infamously known for giving men 4-hour erections before killing them. The terrified mom immediately bagged the bananas and returned them to the Tesco in exchange for a full refund. But the spider itself was never found. She and her live-in boyfriend were left fearing that it might be lurking somewhere in her house, waiting to bite a family member or even laying eggs. And they had every reason to worry. Nicknamed the banana spider for its tendency to nest among banana leaves, the Brazilian wandering spider is considered by many experts to be the world's deadliest spider species. Unlike most spiders, the banana spider has an aggressive demeanor and doesn't always back down from a threat, which naturally increases the likelihood of a bite. When delivered in a high enough quantity, the species' venom causes an array of excruciating and unpleasant symptoms, including high or low blood pressure, an increased or decreased heart rate, vertigo, nausea, abdominal cramping, blurred vision, convulsions, and shock. Luckily though, bites are rare, and in most cases doesn't require antivenom. According to Live Science, around 0.5% of the estimated 4,000 bites that happen every year in Brazil are considered severe. Between 1903 and 2018, there were 15 recorded deaths from wandering Brazilian spider bites, which isn't many in the grand scheme of things. Experts nevertheless warn victims to immediately seek medical treatment to avoid risking life-threatening complications. After all, it's better to be safe than sorry. 5. Goliath bird eater. During a nighttime stroll in a rainforest in Guyana in 2014, Harvard entomologist Piotr Nasgrecki heard something rustling in the nearby brush. Expecting to see a possum, a rat, or some other small mammal, he turned on his flashlight. It took a few seconds for him to realize that he was looking at a massive brown furry spider, which he later compared to the size of a puppy in a live science interview. Nasgrecki recognized the gargantuan creature as a tarantula called the Goliath bird eater, with a maximum weight of up to a half pound, 227 grams or 0.23 kilograms, and a body length of up to 5.1 inches, 13 centimeters. It's officially considered the world's largest spider species in terms of both mass and body length, and with a leg span of up to a foot, 30.5 centimeters, or 0.3 meters, in diameter. It ranks second only to the giant huntsman in terms of leg span. Despite its name, the Goliath bird eater rarely preys on birds, mainly because it hardly ever crosses paths with them. It mainly preys on earthworms, according to Nasgrecki, although the species will attack essentially anything it encounters, including birds, frogs, and small mammals. Goliath bird eaters are non-lethal to humans, but their bite is venomous, and the spider is equipped with a pair of fangs measuring up to 0.79 inches, 2 centimeters long. Nasgrecki described the sensation of being bitten as similar to having a nail driven through one's hand. The species also defends itself against a perceived threat by discharging prickly hairs with microscopic barbs on them, which can be extremely painful and itchy to come into contact with. As unpleasant as all this sounds, Nasgrecki told Live Science that a chicken could likely do more damage to a human than a Goliath bird eater. 4. Funnel web spiders. As unusually heavy rains pounded part of Australia in early 2023, Sydney resident Dan Smith spotted a 3-inch long, 8-centimeter spider in his swimming pool. Upon taking a closer look, he was shocked to realize it was a potentially deadly Sydney funnel web spider. He was one of many people throughout the region who made similar discoveries during the inclement weather. Australia is notorious for its terrifying wildlife, so it takes a lot for any creature to stand out among others. The family of funnel web spiders rank among the few who've earned such a distinction. There are around 40 known species, and they're not all harmful. But some are, and the Sydney funnel web spider, the species that was turning up in people's swimming pools, is considered one of the world's deadliest spiders to humans. Male specimens are thought to be responsible for all of the 13 recorded deaths from funnel web spider bites. According to scientists, a Sydney funnel web's venom evolved to be extremely potent. It contains a powerful neurotoxin, which causes large drops in blood pressure, muscle spasms, coma, and organ failure. Without medical treatment, a person can die in as little as 15 minutes. Thankfully, nobody has died from a Sydney funnel web bite since the development of antivenom in 1981. But if you do happen to get bit by one of these dangerous arachnids, be sure to get to the emergency room immediately. The experience will still be extremely unpleasant and terrifying. 3. Brown recluse spider. The brown recluse spider is native to parts of the South and Central United States, and it's the most common and widespread of all brown spiders. Bites are somewhat rare, and around 90% of all bites heal without any medical treatment. And in most cases, the RICE method, rest, ice, compression, and elevation, is all it takes for someone to recover from a brown recluse bite. But there are exceptions, and every now and then, a bite victim suffers greatly. One such unlucky individual was lifelong Virginia resident Sherry Maddox. who was bitten on the upper lip in 2021 while kayaking along the Staunton River. She initially assumed it was no big deal and carried on with her day. But Sherry's symptoms worsened overnight, so she visited an emergency room, thinking some antibiotics would do the trick. However, the medication failed to help, as Sherry's upper lip grew multiple times its normal size. And the pain became so excruciating that she thought she was going to die. She later told local station WFLA that she even began hallucinating and wasn't sure whether it was being caused by the spider's venom or by the medication she received at the hospital. Luckily, Sherry visited the doctor again and got the care she needed, and eventually she made a full recovery. 2. False widow. In early 2022, wildlife photographer Ben Wadhams discovered several bats trapped in the web of a false widow spider outside his home in Shropshire, England. He shared photos on social media and quickly caught the attention of scientists, who'd never seen bats caught in a false widow's web before. After agreeing to further document the activity in and around the web, Wadhams noticed signs that the spider had been feeding on the carcass of a dead baby bat that had become entangled in its web, making another shocking first for researchers. Named for its close resemblance to the black widow species, the false widow is native to the Madeira Archipelago and the Canary Islands in the North Atlantic Ocean. The species has an invasive presence in Britain, where it's considered the country's most venomous spider. And while the thought of being bitten by a spider that's capable of eating a bat is more than a little horrifying, false widow bites are typically small and relatively harmless to humans. Of course, as with any venomous spider species, a minority of bite victims suffer severe symptoms. 50-year-old Russell Davies learned that he was among the unlucky handful in 2020, when he began noticing painful sores all over his body after moving into a council flat in Kent, England. He suffered for 15 months before discovering that he was being repeatedly bitten by false widow spiders who were infesting his home. By then, Davies had been bitten hundreds of times. The lesions were so painful that he was forced to quit his job as a chef, as he tried getting his housing association to fumigate the residents. A housing agency spokesperson told the press that it was Davies' responsibility to exterminate his home. According to his housing agreement, he apparently couldn't afford the service and claimed that he was forced to live in a tent outside to escape the spiders. As of early 2023, he'd moved into a friend's backyard shed and has officially given up his home in Southborough, Kent. He's currently on a waiting list for a new apartment, which hopefully will be spider-free. We have another great video lined up right after number 1. If you need more of a daily world list dosage, then be sure to stay tuned if you haven't seen that one yet. 1. Redback spiders. Also known as the Australian black widow, the redback spider is common throughout most of Australia and is a cousin to the North American black widow species. In recent years, it's spread to New Zealand, Belgium, and Japan by hitching a ride on grape shipments. In addition to its ability to thrive in a variety of climates and conditions, the redback is particularly dangerous due to its tendency to live in densely populated urban areas, thereby increasing the likelihood of an unpleasant encounter with a human. The species isn't naturally aggressive, and in most cases, it will play dead when threatened. Most bites occur during encounters with females who are guarding their eggs, or when a spider gets trapped in a shoe or another clothing item as a person gets dressed. While both male and female redbacks are venomous, most bites are caused by females. At 2 to 4 times the size of male specimens, females are more visible. They're also more commonly seen because they typically eat males after mating. Besides being more common, female bites are far more serious than male bites, with symptoms of a male bite typically being limited to mild and short-lived pain. This is most likely due to the male redback having smaller fangs and less potent venom. The redback's venom contains powerful neurotoxins that cause pain, sweating, rapid heartbeat, swollen lymph nodes, and other painful and potentially deadly symptoms. More specifically, the venom causes a condition called latrodectism, which is characterized by pain, rigid muscles, vomiting, and sweating. According to experts, the severity of the symptoms depends on how much venom a spider injects, and only an estimated 10 to 20% of redback bites are envenomed. At least 250 Australians are treated for redback spider bites every year, many of whom receive antivenom. The number of total bites, however, is estimated at anywhere from 2,000 to 10,000. Scientists disagree on whether or not the antivenom effectively alleviates symptoms, though, because some studies have yielded evidence that the antivenom has little to no effect. Thankfully, there have been no recorded deaths from redback spider bites since the development of the antivenom in 1956, indicating that it does provide some level of effectiveness. Experts recommend taking common sense measures to avoid being bitten, including shaking out clothing before putting it on and teaching kids not to touch redback spiders.
Number 10. Swallowed by a python. Once again, a woman was recently eaten by a python in Indonesia. This happened in the fall of 2022. This unfortunate victim was identified only as Zara, 54 years old. When she didn't return home from her job at a rubber plantation on Sunday evening, her husband began to worry. He went out looking for her in their small village of Elephant Falls, located in Jambi province on the island of Sumatra. The husband could not find Jara's body, but he did discover her sandals, jacket, and headscarf. He also found some tools that she had likely been bringing home from the rubber plantation. But his wife was nowhere to be seen. He reported her missing, and that was when a search party found the serpent. The team came across a gigantic python about 21 feet, 6.4 meters long. It had a bulge in its stomach that was about the size of a human. The implication of what happened was utterly devastating for the woman's husband. Nobody really wanted to cut the snake open to see what was inside, but they didn't have much of a choice. Jara was indeed discovered inside the belly of the snake. She wasn't completely destroyed because the snake had yet to digest her properly. She had likely been captured by the snake, constricted, and swallowed just hours before the snake was found. It would have been a grueling experience for her. Because pythons are constrictors, she would have been squeezed hard enough by the snake's muscled body that her bones would have been pulverized. If she wasn't dead by the end of that, she would have been swallowed whole only to suffocate inside the bowels of the snake. Number 8. Biting back. In November of 2022, an 8-year-old boy in India gave a snake a shocking taste of its own medicine. The youngster, known only as Deepak, was attacked by a serpent in the remote village of Pandarpad, about 215 miles, 346 kilometers from the biggest nearby city. He was playing in the backyard of his house when a venomous cobra sprang at him without warning. It was a tense and terrifying moment. The cobra wrapped itself around the child's hand and sunk its fangs into him. According to what Deepak told reports, he was in great pain. But when the boy tried to shake the snake off, it wouldn't budge, so Deepak let his instincts take over. He seized the snake and bit it twice as hard as he could. This was enough to freak the snake out and make it slither away. Being bitten by a venomous cobra is one of the most painful experiences a person can go through. The venom essentially eats at your body from the inside out. Luckily for Deepak, the snake never released any poison. He was rushed to a health center and given a shot of anti-venom, but it turned out he didn't need it. By some crazy miracle, the snake just didn't release its venom. It's a phenomenon known as a dry bite, in which the venom fails to be injected through the snake's fangs. In this case, the boy was extremely lucky. Dying from a snake bite is incredibly common in India. According to the Indian Council of Medical Research, at least 100,000 people die per year in India from snake attacks. That's about half the total snakebite fatalities for the entire globe. Number 8. Charged with manslaughter. Karad Fram is facing a manslaughter charge over the untimely death of his 11-year-old son. The charge stems from the fact that Karad let his son go to sleep despite being fully aware of a deadly snakebite. It all started on November 20th, 2021. Christian Fram was playing with his brother at a spot near their house in Queensland, Australia. While the boys were messing around outside, they were attacked by a vicious snake. Christian was bitten by the snake, and the boys ran back to their house, desperate to get help from their father. Instead of taking Christian to the hospital, the 31-year-old dad ignored his son's tragic pleas for help. He forced Christian to go to sleep as normal, telling him not to be a crybaby and to deal with the snake bite himself. The boy was so scared and alone that when he woke up hours later and vomited all over himself, he climbed into a shed and died alone, too afraid to ask his father for help. After a long investigation that went on for nearly a year, police finally arrested Kerrod Fram in early November of 2022. He's being charged with manslaughter and is currently one of the most hated people in Australia. At the time of his arrest, Kerrod had a new girlfriend, pregnant with the child due in about 6 weeks. As for Christian's mother, she also recently had a new baby with her new husband. Sources close to the family say almost no discussion was ever had following Christian's death. Number 7. Strangled in Pennsylvania. A Pennsylvania man perished in July of 2022 when he was killed by his own pet snake. The 18-foot, 5.4-meter monster serpent wrapped itself around the victim's neck so tightly that the man couldn't breathe, and sadly he died being bear-hugged by his own snake. His name was Elliot Sensman, only 27 years old. He was pronounced dead at the Lehigh Valley Hospital 4 days after the attack. His pet was a boa constrictor, and it wrapped around his throat, causing anoxic brain injury. In other words, the complete lack of oxygen to the brain. This is according to the official statement from the Lehigh County Coroner's Office. The police were dispatched to Elliot's house at around 2:12 p.m. They discovered Elliot unresponsive, lying on the floor, still being strangled by the snake. Instead of calling in an animal expert or doing any kind of investigation, the officers shot the reptile in the head. They blew the unsuspecting snake's brains right out of its skull. Only then did they try to perform emergency medical care on the victim. But for Elliot, there was just nothing that could be done. Number 6. A near miss. In November of 2022, a toddler in Melbourne, Australia, almost got in some serious trouble with a brown snake, one of the most venomous serpents in the land down under. A home security system captured the frightening moment the toddler was just about ambushed by the brown snake as it slithered through the backyard. The sneaky reptile was just feet away from Eva, 2 years old, who was splashing around in the kiddie pool and totally oblivious to the potential danger. The mother, Danielle Vizzini, was on the phone with a friend when she saw something unusual from the corner of her eye. It clicked instantaneously that a snake was about to bite her daughter, and she reacted like lightning. Danielle snatched Eva by the arm, yanked her out of the pool, and the toddler narrowly escaped the fangs of the brown snake. The truly remarkable part is just how quickly Danielle reacted. She pulled the child out of the water with the uncanny speed of a kung fu master. If a child were to be bitten by one of these snakes, they would likely not survive more than 30 minutes. Number 5. The deadly black mamba. The black mamba is without a doubt the deadliest snake in Africa, a beast of a serpent that can grow 14 feet, 4.2 meters long. In 2022, one of them went on a murder spree in Zimbabwe. A single black mamba attacked a man's family, killing his wife, his daughter, and his nephew in one brutal attack. According to what the survivor, a man named Tapiwa Masiwa, told local news, the attack happened while his family was collecting firewood in their village. His daughter, 21-year-old Nyarai, was the first to be bitten. As her mother tried to help, she was bitten as well. And when his 15-year-old nephew tried to escape, the black mamba went after him and bit him on the ankle. Its venom results in almost certain death within 3 to 16 hours. Because the black mamba is so deadly, all 3 people who were bit died before the day was done. Tapiwa lost almost his entire family because of one disgruntled snake's bloodthirsty rampage. Number 4. Saved by a chihuahua. Booker West was just 1 year old in 2007 when he was splashing his hands in a bird bath at his grandparents' property in Colorado. The toddler had no idea there was a rattlesnake slithering up behind him, ready to strike. Luckily for Booker, Zoe the chihuahua was not about to let the young boy get bitten. The tiny 5-pound, 2.2-kilogram dog jumped between the rattlesnake and the kid, taking the bites instead of Booker. The brave chihuahua basically took a bullet for the child, saving him at the last possible second and getting a flank full of fangs. Monty Long, the boy's grandfather and the owner of the dog, heard Zoe yip after she took 2 fangs to her side. Luckily, he was able to see what was happening and grab Booker to get him away from the snake. The next thing he had to do was get Zoe to the veterinarian. And although it looked like she might not survive the ordeal, she did make a full recovery. Zoe is now a hero dog, one of the very few chihuahuas that legitimately saved someone's life with their bravery. Number 3. The adder strikes. In early 2022, Jake Clozier was playing in some sand dunes in Norfolk, the UK, when he was attacked by a snake. At first, Jake, who was only 8 years old at the time, thought he had been bitten by a harmless grass snake. So too did his mother, Sophie, who dismissed the snake bite as nothing to worry about. However, the family soon learned it was definitely something to worry about when Jake's hand swelled up to 5 times its normal size. They realized he had been bitten by an adder, the only true venomous snake in England. The venom from the adder shrunk Jake's veins, causing his hand to swell and turn black as if it might rot off. The family immediately rushed to the closest hospital in Great Yarmouth, taken there by a helpful local at the village. The family had no immediate means of transportation and ran around banging on doors until someone agreed to help them reach the hospital quickly. They would have waited for an ambulance, only it would have taken 8 hours to get there. Thankfully, Jake's hand was saved by an anti-venom drip. But it was a really close call. By the time they reached the hospital, Jake's hand had turned hard like someone injected it with concrete. It was a rough night worrying about Jake. Because the venom had shrunk his veins so much, it was difficult to get the antivenom circulating through Jake's system. But by the next day, the venom had passed through his body, and there was no more risk of him dying. He went on to make a full recovery, and his hand deflated back to its normal size. The only thing is that Jake is now terrified of walking on grass. He also has constant nightmares about being attacked by a snake. Number 2. The Everglades Cottonmouth. Part of living in South Florida means you're going to have at least one encounter with a snake in your life. You just have to hope it isn't a deadly encounter. In June of 2022, Javier Ortiz almost found himself on the losing end of a fight with a cottonmouth while working in his garden in Miramar. As he was gardening, he came across a dead palm tree branch and moved it aside to reach the weeds underneath. According to him, that was when he felt a pinch on his right hand. That pinch was a pair of fangs breaking through his skin. At first, he didn't think it was a big deal. Javier built his house 21 years ago and had never seen a snake on his property. He just assumed it was a non-venomous snake and he would be fine. But as it turned out, Javier was not fine at all. It was his wife who insisted they go straight to the emergency room, even though Javier didn't feel like he was in any danger. It was a good thing they did, though, because by the time they got there, his hand was swollen and he was in significant pain. The snake venom was already spreading through his bloodstream. Javier had to start on an anti-venom treatment immediately, and it took 8 hours for his hand to stop swelling. If he hadn't gone to the hospital when he did, he may have even lost his hand entirely. Number 1. Snakes bite in Israel. Israel is not only home to some of the most important religious sites in the world, it's also notorious for its deadly vipers. A 13-year-old boy was hospitalized in September of 2022 after he was bitten by a snake in northern Israel. The youth was attacked at around 6 in the morning and transported to the Ziv Medical Center in serious condition, but the bite didn't prove fatal. He wasn't the only one who fell victim to a snake attack this summer in Israel. At the end of June, 2 people were attacked in separate incidents within an hour of each other in totally different parts of the country. And earlier that same month, an Israeli soldier almost died after he was bitten by a snake at a military base. Another soldier got bitten a month prior in May and fell seriously ill as well. The snake responsible for most of these attacks is the viper, the most common venomous snake found in Israel. They grow to about 3 feet, 1 meter long, and have specialized venom for damaging blood circulation. Although they generally feed on rodents and toads, they sometimes attack unsuspecting soldiers and kids.
Would you rather have a venomous snake or venomous spider infestation around your home? Let us know in the comments below, but be sure to subscribe first. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye.